Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast, and as always, I am in airplane mode, and now a man whose future wife just took him for a walk, which is why he looks so tired and needs a drink of water. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I am excellent. Thank you. Just a bit tired, as you noted. Thank you. And how are you?
Good. This should be an interesting topic. So I saw this clip pop up on my feed from Pints with Aquinas about an abortionist who sees Mary and Jesus. And
how did he know what they look like?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll tell us. But the thing that gets
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing that gets me about Pints with Aquinas is he always presents himself and his guests and stuff as like super serious intellectuals, and they're having the super serious podcast, and to me they really just are talking about their magical fantasy land and talking about it as though this stuff is really happening. And so I thought it'd be a bit of fun to sort of notice what they do with their language here and how difficult it can be to sort of have to share a space with people like this.
Well, how nice of Jesus and his mom to come all the way from Narnia to visit that man. And why is Jesus a baby when he does it? Why?
Yeah, and again, like I know that this is it's a bit of poking fun at the way they share their experiences, but the reality is I think that there's obviously a very serious anti abortion rights agenda in the Catholic Church. And so, of course, for them, this is like a testimony, I guess. But there really isn't right. But there really is an agenda here. There's really an agenda here, and an agenda that I find to be quite problematic, obviously. So, that's kind of what I'm trying to draw more attention to with things I do lately is because we can only do so much debunking, and I think at some point for me, you get to the question of, well, why are we here anyway? And I think for a lot of these people, they have an agenda, and the religion is sort of the umbrella or the sort of branding that they operate under, and a lot of them try not to focus on those things, but they can use their content, use their stories and their platform to those ends. So just want to highlight that connection there. But yeah, we can go ahead and jump into this.
Okay.
So 2 days later, my mom gets on the phone and goes, "Hey, John, do you want to go to Dubrovnik with me for a winter break?" I like Dubrovnik. Oh, yeah, on the Adriatic. I love it. She's like, yeah, but we're going to go to a place called Medjugorje for a few days. Would you? Yeah, way.
This is the second time you've heard that name, probably. Medjugorje.
Second time.
Yeah.
Because my father basically was like, no, that's not approved. We can't go there. Yeah. Anyway, lo and behold, I go, sure, Mom. Because when moms ask, you go.
And did it feel providential that you're hearing this word a few days after your doctor?
Yeah, it was, well, you know how some people say there's no such thing as coincidences or God incidences?
Yeah.
Coincidence. You know, come on. I'm science.
Yeah.
By this point, you know, I believe in scientism. I believe that there's nothing out there where it's all chance. Yeah. Roll the dice, you know, the pool of sludge that created the protein that, you know, that's how genes, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so
I just got to say here, you know, you don't seem authentic when you talk like this. I know, actually, I what I like about doing commentary on this type of thing is you're seeing a conversation amongst two people who a certain degree of alignment between their positions already. And so they're using sort of like in-group language, I guess I'd call it. And so to them, it's so he knows with this platform and you know, this Catholic leaning audience and all this type of stuff. Oh, we can talk about scientism and yeah, you know, I believed in the sludge and you know, I emerged from the primordial ooze and the blah 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 and all this type of stuff. And it's like, well, yeah, actually, I don't think you were, right? Because you know, if you were really like a you know, immersed in science, you
You'd
wouldn't
use better terms.
You wouldn't talk about scientism. You would recognize that as sort of a slanderous propaganda term that's used by anti-science people, and you wouldn't speak so dismissively about evolutionary theory, knowing that you know, just the climate that we're in and stuff like that. So
I do wonder what the name of his book is. I got a feeling this looks like a man who has a book to sell.
Yeah. Oh,
it'll be curious to see.
I was wondering. I've been wondering the same thing. I don't. Let's take
Dr. John. What's his Dr. John? What?
Bruchalski. Bruchalski.
Wow. Why am I seeing his address?
There's a little bit more information than I was looking for.
I don't want that. Wait, he does have a book. It's called Two Patients. He has at least one book. My Conversion from Abortion to Life.
Oh yeah, he's the guy.
There you go,
he's the
folks.
guy.
I'm telling you,
on top of it.
I know we have a lot of atheists in our audience. I want to tell you, probably the path to riches is to convert, be it true or otherwise. Just get a book in you, and I was slanderous to the Lord, blah blah blah. And then one day I saw a mud puddle with the reflection of Jesus breaking through the clouds on his three-wheeler. A picture of Sid J. Jesus is in the clouds on his three-wheeler, getting some air, maybe throwing up a peace sign reflected in a puddle. And when I looked up to the sky, it was gone. But I knew right then and there, not only was there a God, but there was a Jesus and there was a heaven, and Christianity is true, 100% true. Even the parts that are hard to believe and make no sense, 100% true. Even the parts I can't prove, 100% true.
And I haven't murdered a kitten since.
I won't even swat a mosquito now. Take that, James.
2 weeks later, a week later, 10 days, whatever it was, I went. And my mom, you know, it's a 10-hour flight. You know, we flew into, I think, Dubrovnik. It was gorgeous. And I brought my Bible, because they give you a Bible at the Assembly of God Church. And I had a book about the place written by a Lutheran who was very amenable to it. And I'm like, damn, I am not going to go to any freaking visionaries. I don't.
Hey, Uncle Bobby.
And I was there with my mother. It was January.
Honestly, Medjugorje is worth going to just for the coffee, to be fair. It's terrific, isn't it?
It's just... Yes, it is. I love the coffee. Yeah. It's a little Turkish, a little Italian. It's got that flavor, robust. Anyway, oh boy. And while we were there, we get off the bus and we went, oh, by the way, with a communist travel agency. Mom just called up CIT, which was communist run. Oh. Their hotel wasn't, of course, didn't work. So we stayed at a home with people who were there. So it defaulted to a home. Yeah. And here was this family with a little child. The mother had her second child. We were up in the loft. There were 4 Americans. There were probably 15 Belgian people praying for pro-life work. Mm. There were probably 20 Italians, and the rest were just town people. 1989 winter.
Okay. I heard my earbuds cut out. So there's part of what he said before he mentioned staying in his house and the hotel not working. So now he's in the company. So we got some priming going on. He's in the company of all these Belgians who are praying for pro-life work. So for his mind, the stage is being set. And he's in Turkey. In Turkey, you can go see the Black Madonna in Child. They have one there. So where Jesus is black. So I joked earlier what he looked like. This guy might be able to tell us, yeah, Jesus and his mother were black, but not black like Pocket Locker is black and black like My One Black Friend are black. No. Black like my microphone staying like here in my spare bedroom is black. Yeah. So I'm absolutely waited with bated breath to hear what he has to say about Jesus. And but yeah, this is how dreams work, folks. It's just a bunch of stuff your mind picks out of basically the bin of things it's seen and can't imagine, and then it starts putting it together for you, and you probably won't control it. But maybe he saw them there, like walking around. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh wait, and Liz, did you actually read this book?
That's what she's saying. I read that book in my Christian day.
I imagine it's a pretty compelling story for sure. I mean, I can imagine it's a hot one too at the Christian bookstore.
So is he practicing medicine for free now?
Cold.
Is he giving it away like Jesus did?
Gave all away his possessions.
Yeah. I have
Mom and I get off.
I have a fake. Hold on. I have a fake tooth. I think it's this one. It's fake. The root's real, but it's a veneer. It's not a veneer. What is it? A cap or something? I don't know what it's called. So I met the guy who made it. He says, "No, come on over to my shop and blah blah blah." And he and I were talking. He's become extremely wealthy because he invested very wisely over the years, and he does something that's very expensive. He's taking all of his equipment. He's going to retire, sell the business, retire, take all of his equipment with him, and move to a third world country and do dentistry for free.
Wow.
He doesn't need a human being to ever give him another nickel for anything in his life. He set himself up pretty well. And now he's going to give it away. Can this guy do the same thing? Or is he doing the same thing? Liz read the book, maybe. Catholic with a little C, certainly not a little cash. Liz, maybe you can comment on that. Did he become one of those people that's sort of like a Doctors Without Borders kind of thing? I don't know.
He didn't. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what is he doing now.
Immediately, there's things in the sky that my mother saw that she felt unworthy to see. Sun spinning, becoming a Eucharist.
Can you pause it? Can you pause it?
Go ahead.
Okay, the sun, the one that in our solar system does spin, but it's probably not noticeable to the naked human eye. Since it's about 93 million miles away, you may not catch it going round and around like a dreidel, just spinning there. It's not that way.
And I'm also just wondering, like, if he's got something in his family,
Again, it's primed. If his mother is a devout religious person and she happens to be Catholic, she probably knows about Fatima or Fatima. I don't know how they pronounce it in Portugal. I think it's Portugal or Spain. I forget which one. But she probably knows where those little kids saw the Virgin Mary, and she came to speak to them and tell them about. I don't remember. I saw the movie, and I've heard presentations on it. I can't recall. I just didn't care. But at any rate, they saw the sun spinning in the sky, as did other people who came there to gather with those kids. Also saw the sun spinning in the sky. Well, look, I got a fairly bright light next to me. I can't look at it for any length of time. But if people were trying to stare at the sun, it's no doubt to me that their eyes probably went a little haywire, or it's just hysteria. Somebody saying they see it and other people looking at the same thing. So even though they don't see it the same way, it's innocent, right? They don't see it the same way. They can't interpret it like the person who says the sun is spinning. So yeah, they were there. They saw the same thing everybody else did, but whoever said it was spinning, it didn't look like that to maybe a few other people, but they agreed they saw the sun spinning in the sky. Just maybe didn't look that way to them.
Heart beating, a heart beating in the sun. You can hear the noise.
She's seeing this.
She's seeing it. I saw some of it, but I said, this is mass psychosis.
This is so
yes,
weird. Yes.
You know, you
I'll
see
drink
Jesus
to
and you
that.
still turn.
It's only
Gang,
water.
I mean,
but
come on. This guy, like, this is strange. And it's like giving me like a weird heebie-jeebie feeling or something. Like, cause it's like you're actually having someone tell a story that on one hand, like, is this guy just totally pumping us up on the Jesus tip, or does he like legitimately have visions that he's breaking down? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, this is
you see how dismissive he is of it. If you want to rewind it a little, he's sort of hand waving it away like me.
yeah, we can play that again.
A heart beating in the sun. You can hear the noise.
She's seeing
Yeah,
this.
he's, like,
She's seeing it.
chuckling.
I saw some of it, but I said, this is mass psychosis.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because remember, you know, Jesus, you know, you see Jesus and you still turn away from him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
So-
Jesus in bread. Jesus in like
Hey,
there's
Go ahead.
Jesus in bread. There's people see Jesus in bread. There's like a Cheeto Jesus. You know, there's whatever. The mind can put it together for you. If you want to be entertained by your brain, it's happy to do it. And you don't need drugs. You know, you can deprive yourself of sleep and get some of the same results. Ask anybody who's been to college and graduated with C's. They'll tell you that's how it works.
So there's a lot of mystery cult weirdness built into all of this. And one of the things that just caught me is like the way he just said, well, you know, because he's kind of exclaiming all these visions. Then he's like dismisses of them. Oh, I thought they were just mass psychosis. And then he just jumps straight to, you know, because, you know, you see Jesus and you still turn away from him. And they just roll through that like, oh yeah, that's the cliche everybody knows. And I'm like, what? Like, think about what they're claiming. First off, really? You think people literally will like have a visceral, actual experience of this amazing God and you know, you just it's just God. You just and you still turn away. And matter of fact, it's so cliche. Everybody knows that. You have a vision of God. You just turn away from it. Like what type of story is that? And then also, what does it say about them as believers that they're literally mostly so obsessed with God, but they're bought into this idea that it's normal to actually experience God and still turn away from him. It's a very weird part of the lore.
There is a good example of this in the Bible, actually, I think. So Moses is chosen by God, and Moses is like, no, I'm not an eloquent man, Lord. Come on, Moses. No. And yet God blesses Moses with all this I guess authority and ability to make some hogwash, something of that nature happen to troll because as God trolls Egypt for because the Hebrews want to leave and Pharaoh doesn't want that. So I don't know. I guess there's examples of people not wanting to be. In fact, I'll give that more credit than that. We see people preaching that and individuals testifying that God was calling them to do something and they kept fighting it. They kept fighting it. And finally, when they did, it changed their life, right? This is maybe the prosperity gospel. I didn't tithe, I didn't tithe. And finally, I said, I'm going to step out on faith. And the next thing you know, I had a lottery ticket where I won $8 or
Right,
$75,
right,
what have you. And now, oh my gosh, it's proven it absolutely works somehow every time, although it doesn't for other people. You know,
right,
there's the fact
right.
checking ends at some point.
Yeah. But so that's the thing that is very interesting to me is and Uncle Bobby's words are coming to mind, which is the Christianity is the acceptable kind of crazy, because I think most of us would be deeply concerned if somebody used this type of visionary rhetoric outside of
Mm-hmm.
this context.
We begin to walk around the town, and eventually I end up going to the small apparition hill called Pudborough. And while I was sitting there, a young woman comes up to me who I believe was Belgian. And once again, this is stuff that I share with people, and it's in the book To Patience. But I don't. It's just prayer. I mean, it's not something for me to think, to contemplate over, because it's just part of my life. And she comes up and she says, "Oh, you're the mother's doctor." Mother who? What are you talking about? Well, I was praying over there, and I think you're an OBGYN, and I have a bunch of things to tell you. Would you sit down and open up your...
Who's saying this to you?
A woman from Belgium.
You've never met?
Never met.
Pause it. I'll add it up for you, folks. Math is my job. It's my day job. So he was staying in a house with many, many Belgians staying there, praying for basically pro-life work, his words. And now he's talking to a Belgian woman that he had never met who seems to know he's an OBGYN. Is it possible? Let me say it like a preacher. Is it possible? Like Ray Hagan's, is it possible that he spoke to some of those Belgians, at least one, told them what he did, and since those Belgians are from the same country, in the same home, visiting the same place, might they have been talking and someone mentioned who he was and what he did? Is it possible? Go ahead, Pakman.
No, that's absolutely correct. And
I mean, you don't need to call Scooby-Doo and Velma to solve this.
yeah, yeah. And also, I'm just like, I don't know. People say weird stuff that happens to coincidence. Like it just seems like such a mundane thing to use as evidence of the supernatural, and it shows that a lot of people really just assume that as soon as something out of the normal happens, they jump straight to the potential for that to be something supernatural. And I'm at such a weird place. It's just like, yeah, it takes a lot. Like, if you see a car go flying off the side of the road, it tumbles over, 4 or 5 times, and somehow the driver crawls out unscratched. People are like, oh, the hand of God protected him. And I'm just like, no, like, really, weird, improbable things happen all the time.
There's solid engineering that goes into that car.
Yeah,
I don't
and
care when
that's
it was
not
built.
even that's not even completely something left to chance. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now wait, can you blow his face up to be full screen?
Yes.
Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, look at his face. Now I do realize this is paused, and we can all have a moment where in a video of us we are paused and we look silly or particularly good looking or something. The moment right now, this looks like a man who knows he's speaking some BS and doesn't like that he's speaking BS, but he shall continue speaking BS and like it even less as he talks.
Yes.
In my view, that's what I see.
Yes. And I've been having some thoughts over here. So I think there's like legitimate selection for not necessarily the best mental traits in a person due to religion, right? Because there's sort of a elevation of what we would consider symptoms of mental health conditions that are reinforced, right, in the church. And so that's kind of interesting. But also, I think there's like a self-delusion that happens, because one of the things is I think that they attribute to God anything beyond what's incredibly visceral to them. So I think literally just their imagination space becomes like a really powerful interplay, because I think they're of a certain mindset where it's like they can see something with their mind's eye, and that seeing it, is that is that did I why did I see that? I've seen
Right.
a lot of things in my mind's eye, but why did I envision that? And then when they start to share these stories and they find that people are like, oh, well, people light up, you buy more into it, right?
Yeah. And I think you can tell by other people's excitement which details are left in the story as it grows. I live in an area, I told my fiance, because she'll hear like a noises, like a sonic boom. And I've explained, like, hey, you live in an area where there are experimental aircraft being flown. They do it at nighttime, they do it in the day. This is stuff you probably won't see anywhere else in the world for years. And it's just over our neighborhood. So, because we live in the middle of the desert where it's better than a heavily populated area to fly such machines. So, when the engineers who are going to design those things have a vision of what they can build, like they get the ideas, even they have to start putting it down, right? They have to either get to their computer and start drawing it, or they have to get out the napkin and start drawing it, or they get out there, if somebody uses a drafting machine, it's totally old school. They eventually have to start drawing it, and it's refined and refined and refined. And other people come in and add their context to it, right? So, as the Aquinas guy, I don't know what his name is, he sits there and he's going, yeah, yeah. If he's the 50th person hearing this guy tell these stories, this guy has had 50 encounters with people who are affirming different parts of his story, who like different parts of his story. And more than likely, that's how it grows in the telling. I haven't read his book. I don't know how the story initially began. I wasn't on a place called Little Apparition Hill. Now, I would assume a Little Apparition Hill, when you get there, your mind is pre-programmed to see an apparition. You're paying for the experience. If I go to Disneyland or whatever the heck the one in Anaheim is, I'm probably going to want to go see that Star Wars experience or whatever. I don't know what's called. The Star Wars thingy. I'm probably going to want to go see the Matterhorn. I want to see Snow White and Cinderella in the same parade. I want the light show because I know that stuff happens there. I know that's there. And if I don't experience those things, if all I do is get a snow cone and a Coca-Cola, I'm really missing out on the grand experience that's right in front of me. He might feel the same way. You know, I went to Little Apparition Hill and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. I mean, that could be
right.
that could be what's happening to this guy, but you want more, right? It's not enough. I'll share a story because I've been talking a lot, but I'll talk some more. I worked in the Republic of Georgia, which is just called Georgia. So not in the United States, the one in Eurasia or Europe. It just depends on who you talk to. So that's where Carrie Ann Chrysler has some people from. And Carrie Ann, you should go if you can. So my friends took me to a town called Signagi. And I think this place we stopped was almost at Signagi, which is really beautiful. And it was a healing well. So I'm an atheist. I have arthritis really bad in my right ankle. One of the women that was on the trip with us, she had some serious health issues that she was hoping could be healed by her going into the water at the healing well. So me and her get in the water. Now for me, I'm doing it because I like this kind of thing. I get excited about it. I think it's horse crap, but it's interesting to me how human beings participate, engage with the mythology.
Yeah.
So she got in, I got in, and this nun was like, I don't think he should go in. No, I didn't say I was an atheist. And they're like, oh, she's being a racist because I'm like one of the like 9 black people in their entire country during this time. And I'm like, no. Who knows what her reasoning is? I just don't assume people are racist. So the fellow traveler gets in the well. I get in the well. She comes out. I stay in a little longer because I'm an atheist to burn off impurities. Anyway, so I come out of the water. She feels better. Georgians tend to be very religious people, often Christian, sometimes Muslim, but very religious people. And then there's me. I come out of the water. My friends are excited. How do you feel? And I'm like, the same. But I was glad I did it. Like, I feel the exact same. Ankle still bothers me. It was bothering me today. So the fact that someone who was a believer was feeling a positive result and someone who wasn't, me, is like, oh, it was something I could say I did. You know, I did it. And the nun, they were talking and they would speak to me in English, but they would then speak in Georgian, right, in Kartulad. And the nun said, well, maybe it didn't work on him because he doesn't believe. I'd mentioned like, hey guys, I'm an atheist. I don't know if this stuff works anyway. But if it does, I could admit it, right? And there's nun said, no, he doesn't believe, so it's not going to work. Well, look, even the Georgian version of the Bible will tell her and tell me that your faith, Jesus said, your faith has healed you. I don't have any faith that that's going to work. It's a novelty to me. I might as well have taken a Pez out of a Pez dispenser and hope that would take the pain away. It'd be just as effective as getting in a healing well, from my perspective. But from the woman that was there with us, it meant something to her. And so there's an investment there that I don't have. It's beautiful to her in a way that it's novel to me. It's quaint to me. Like, that's very interesting. I don't think it's true. It's very interesting. So anyway, just wanted to share that because that's it. I think he's having a version of that, only whatever, his blood sugar was low, so
there's a bigger audience. See, the funny thing is, even as a Catholic, he'd laugh at the healing well. You know,
he probably would, like, oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there was the pool at Siloam where people got in, right? In the Bible, people went into the pool and would be healed. An angel would come and trouble the waters. And I guess if there was like a bit of a first in, first healed kind of deal going on there, and Jesus told that guy, hey, pick up your mat and walk. You know, Jesus just healed that guy. So evidently, that is an account that serves as evidence for billions of people that sort of place can exist. that it's true. Well, excuse me, could we go to the pool of Siloam today? Because the Bible and see people healed. The Bible doesn't say it didn't work that way, right? It says it did. An angel would come and then people could go into the water and be healed. And Jesus just happened to get there because that guy had no one to put him in the water. So he just happened to be there coincidentally, or was it, to do the healing? So if it's true, right? If it's true,
Yeah.
can we go there today? My mom, she had a part of her leg amputated. Will she regrow it? My brother that's dealing with blood cancer, can I stick him in there? No, Richard, don't hurry out. Spend some time in there, because when you come out, you will be cleansed. Is that the way it works?
I would love to hear scholars talk more about the sort of magic healing powers of Jesus as a deity. You always hear sort of all this scholarship about how different aspects of the story were, come from other stories or how it shares those elements in common. A virgin birth, the resurrection after death, the chosen followers, the mythical communion, all that type of stuff. But sort of it's almost like the magic healing powers are so common in mythology that they're like trivial. It's like we just the history of it.
It's superhero stuff. Like when we read we see these Marvel movies or whatever, DC movies, there seem to be commonalities amongst superheroes. If you and I were to start a magazine and we were going to write a comic book, and we were going to have superheroes in it, there's probably going to be at some point a guy who can run super fast, right? There's likely to be a guy somebody who could fly. There's going to be a guy who has the power to make things cold. Another guy, lady that can set stuff on fire. Somebody with exceptional mental ability that they can make you see things like Scarlet Witch or Jane, or what was that? Jane somebody? I forget her name. But like one of the X-Men, Jean Grey, yeah. Somebody like her, we're going to end up thinking of things they already thought of. Other people who came along before us thinking of those things. Right. So I think we have to accept that even a true story may share details with fiction. It's just a fact. Clark Kent worked at a newspaper. Plenty of people work at a newspaper. And they wear glasses and they look different without them. Okay, that doesn't mean they have superpowers. But for Clark Kent, those were aspects of who he was when he was Superman. His what's unique about him, right? They say he puts on a disguise to hide who he truly is because he's awesome 100% of the time. Not like Batman, who puts on all the Batman gear to hide who he truly is. Just some dude with a lot of money and physical abilities.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
And after several tens, maybe over 60, things that she said would happen or possibly could happen if I opened my heart here, because my heart was hard.
And she knew that.
She says it was hard as the rocks on the ground. I said, yeah, you're nuts. Thanks. But, I put down my book, began to open up my Bible, and then we had singing of some sort in my prayer, and a smell of roses. And when I looked up, there in front of me in my prayer was the Sacred and Immaculate Hearts.
You've said in my prayer. I haven't heard that expression before. What do you mean?
I'm praying. I'm just praying my heart out here that if there is a God, that he would hear me. I'm praying that my mother is here. Now I'm fracturing. I know I'm fracturing.
Gang, this language, my heart was hardened and in my prayer I see the Immaculate Hearts and the beating of the Lion of Judah, and in my prayer I'm fractioning like gang how and he's looking at him just nodding along like, yeah brother, that's how it goes sometimes, like how do
Jay,
people just hear this stuff and like, yes, amen, oh, power to the glory of God?
Look, if he were giving his testimony in a church and this were a sermon or something, there's no organ player there to give us the fill in of, oh my gosh, folks, can't you feel this story? If you can't, let the organist take you there.
Yes.
Right? Let the organist get you there. And so the Aquinas guy is sitting there looking very thoughtful, being moved or just appearing so by what he's hearing. And we have the guest whose voice he's starting to slow his speech down a little bit. He's starting to think more about what he's saying, because he's starting to, if there were feelings, he's starting to what? Feel them again as he gives this account another time. So doesn't make it more true. People know when they need to make changes. They also know when they finally have the courage to do so. And so he was already, we see from his testimony here, he's already feeling that way. And he was just in a moment where it became, in his opinion, clearly, that it was okay to let go of what he was holding on to that was frustrating him, angering him, holding him back, if you will, and have this experience, which is totally book worthy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the self-priming, right? Like, dudes having a prayer in the middle of a self-induced religious experience, and then my mind is supposed to be blown that he has a religious experience. Okay. All right.
But it's not because of what I'm doing. It's because of the lies that my parents told me are still inside of me, pulling me back.
Yeah.
What?
But I'm fracturing because I count body parts. And by this point, I was doing bigger abortions with tearing off limbs. And I was helping remove eggs for embryos to make embryos for IVF, in vitro fertilization. And
Gang, what kind of medical procedure is the doctor tearing off baby limbs?
That's a late term abortion. That's a late term abortion where the fetus is more developed, and that's how they get it out. They can't induce an early birth. Well, maybe they can with today's sophistication. Maybe they can, but they don't. So they go in there and, sorry for those listening, they basically vacuum the child out.
Yes.
They suck the child out.
But again, to me, this story is lacking the context of, you were a doctor. This is, medical care, and late term abortions are usually due to medical reasons, right? And that's why this is just a weird perspective to have on all of this.
Well, to be fair, we're not starting the video at the beginning, so maybe he provides more context of his professional life and his duties earlier on.
Yeah,
so we may be missing out.
There's absolutely no way I could sit through.
I'm not asking you to rewind
90 minutes or no. I'm just thinking to myself, it's funny. I actually think these guys are just so dry.
Sterilizing anything that was poor.
I want to tell you about a course that I have created.
Worst time for a commercial ever.
I know. It's like you guys are difficult to make fun of because you're hard to listen to.
This is a terrible time for a commercial, dude. He's talking about aborting children and then an ad for something that is clearly an essential service or product for his viewers.
I was harvesting eggs for IVF. Like it sounds like he didn't like his job. That's
Why throw that in there? Isn't that, let's be honest, isn't that probably a really beautiful thing? To contrast with giving someone an abortion, which probably is heartbreaking for the mother, maybe the father, and even the doctor. Like, right? You can't count doctors' feelings out. And then harvesting eggs for in vitro fertilization, which could give people a chance to have a family. I mean, I think that's wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? We have that technology. I mean, evidently, look, if you read the Bible, the Holy Spirit took care of that. In vitro gave Mary in vitro, and she got pregnant. So it worked back then.
I have to admit, I'm a tad curious about him because of the how did he end up doing this coming from the background he came from? It's sort of like it's weird. It's weird to grow up steeped in these religious traditions, grow in that line of work, and then hate it. And this is a very weird story, because it's like, why not just pick another specialty in medicine? You know, didn't seem like this was the way to go for this guy.
He could go to a university and become a teacher.
Yeah,
if he didn't want to do it, practice medicine anymore, just go be a teacher, dude. You could be a fabulous teacher.
Yeah, or just become a foot doctor or something.
I was doing bigger abortions with limbs. And I was helping remove eggs for embryos to make embryos for IVF, in vitro fertilization.
It's just emotional manipulation.
And I was sterilizing anything that was poor.
I know what you mean, but say...
I know. Well, anybody who couldn't afford more children, we made sure that their tubes were tied.
Without their consent.
Well, with their consent, but with, we just encouraged them, and we gave them all the positives without the negatives. And, and it wasn't until...
Are these mentally ill people?
Like, some of those people tried to come back to me 2 years later after being with them and praying for them. They're back at church. They now have found a man. They now have found somebody that they could give their life to. And, oh, by the way, I tied their tubes 2 or 3 years earlier. And now they wanted children and family. Couldn't do it because, the federal government doesn't pay for that. Tough place to be.
So it sounds like in Medjugorje, you were in the same position as Peter when he said, "Get away from me, I'm a sinful man."
So once again, in my prayer, when I looked up and I saw or imagined what I saw, I felt...
He just said the quiet part out loud. Yep. All right, well, that about does it. We're good to go. We go. Show's over, gang. I don't know. Yeah, but no, there it is. And the funny thing is, they still go with this. Like, they're still like, yeah, we should make a video about this. This is amazing. This is a profound experience. And if you look at the comment section, gang, don't look at the comment section. It's discouraging just how normalized this type of visionary rhetoric is. And we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. The episode of the Blackout we just did was about the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and I just don't know how to take on the threat of Christian nationalism in a country full of people that are still on board with Christianity. And this is just this cult is scary, and I think it's all out of control. But but this is normal to us. This is like, oh yeah, Christian had a vision and an apparition in his prayer, and this is how God changes hearts and minds, I guess.
Well, then why not do that for everybody in the world at the exact same time? right? If let's go back to the story about the Exodus. So before the Hebrews leave, God is putting all these plagues on Egypt, and the people of Egypt who don't believe in the Christian God are witnessing his awesome power. And there's a Pharaoh who can go ahead and acquiesce at any moment. You know what? By all means, Moses, you and your people want to leave, it's okay. Go ahead and go, and I wish you well. Or go ahead and go, and I hope you all die. Whatever. You know, Pharaoh can just give him his goodbye and let that be the end of it, and let those people leave. That's not what happens. Instead, God hardens Pharaoh's heart. So God literally makes Pharaoh be a jerk so he can hurt him.
Right.
I'll use what Bishop Jack Shelby Spong said. So God could hit him one more time, right? So he's keeping abusing all these people in Egypt who probably would be happy to see their Hebrew friends set free, right?
Right.
Even they are suffering. Is that actually fair? You know, the Bible tells us, oh no, the angel of death, when he came down there to kill the firstborn, if he saw the lamb's blood on the whatever, the I forget what it's called. It's not maybe it's the lintels or so whatever. It's on the door or something like that of the house. You saw it on their homes. It would just pass by. You see a lot of Jewish people have mezuzahs on their house today with lamb's blood inside. So the angel of death, when he comes down, they're like, oh, look, that's someone who's Jewish. I'll just go on the next house. Oh, look, that's where my one black friend lives. There's a mezuzah in that house somewhere because he was given one, but it's not on the door. So I'm going to go in there and get his black butt. You know, it could be something like that, right? But the fact is, a God that powerful could share a beautiful experience with billions of people in real time, not in some book somewhere with other stuff that is clearly fiction, not in some book somewhere where we don't know where if some things are purely historical, or maybe somebody sort of, oh, let me just add a few embellishments here. We don't always know. It is one of the worst ways to communicate things. I have here in front of me, I got my fiance's sewing machine. Here's a Viking owner's handbook. If you have a Viking 6690 sewing machine with stitch cartridges, that's going to be useful to tell you how to use this machine. It doesn't really talk about other things, I suppose. It's focused on this machine. So if the God of the Bible wanted us to understand that he's present, right? This is presented in a language I'll understand with clear instructions on how to operate the machine that's right in front of me on the other side of my telephone. We can know for sure whether or not this works in real time. I have a manual for the Mustang 2 front end that's on my truck. And I called the company who made it. And the guy goes, oh yeah, there's a typo in there. There's a picture that was copied and pasted that it shouldn't be in your manual.
All right. Do you want to answer this question?
What's the question?
Please ask him what he would consider sufficient proof that God is real whilst not taking away free will.
Yeah, this is my spare bedroom in my house. God could come down here and he could stay here for free as long as he wants, or at least until the house is sold. He can stay here for free. And I'll explain what life is like in the United States on earth to him. I will get him in my Prius because I'm environmentally responsible a little bit. And I will drive him down to Skid Row in Los Angeles. I will take him around the valley where I live here. And I'll show them, see, you know, we have some mentally ill people. Some of these people believe in you. And look what you've done for them, right? Did you make sure they got enough food to survive today? Or can you possibly touch their lives in a way that they can be thriving individuals? And I know some people suffering, some people living high on the hog makes you look good, but it only makes you look good to you. The book of Revelation says that the God of the Bible created the universe created everything for his pleasure. So does that mean when someone gets assaulted, beaten, killed, that he is really excited about it? Is it like watching videos to him? right? Do we mean so little to that God where he's ultimately going to kill his own kid to save us from a punishment that he designed for disobedient angels? But he's going to throw people in there too when they die so they can suffer eternally.
Yeah.
The person who wrote that question, if they are a Christian, you don't have a good God to start with. You don't. You probably have been told that you do. You've probably been told that you should have lots of gratitude for the Christian God and reverence for what he does and doesn't do on your behalf. He might withhold prosperity from you because he's trying to see you grow on your own. How is that different than you being lucky and applying the right effort to any given situation? So what would make me believe God can see? God can sleep right there if he needs sleep. If he needs an office, I can hook him up. I got plenty of space in this house. I got a mother-in-law suite. We're going to be plan on moving out in January or February, whenever escrow closes on this house. The guy that's in the mother-in-law suite, he's out on December 15th. God can stay there if he needs a little more space.
They're Muslim.
They're Muslim. Great. It's 600 square feet, 660 square feet, something like that. God can stay there. You might even be able to fit one or two cherubim in there with him.
I just think they're the one that's gone for the gag. Like, it's, to me as a believer, when you're putting it all on the line for your God, why aren't you seeking objective proof that they do exist?
But he doesn't need objective, but it's not necessary. I know that much about Islam, right? I would be willing, and maybe the person wants to offer us this. What is required for a person? What are the minimum requirements for a person to be a Muslim? Because I don't know. And that person can answer that. For a Christian, I know you're supposed to repent and be baptized. Minimum requirement. Also, you would say maybe accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, but that's part of the baptism ritual where you accept it there, right? So what are the minimum requirements to be a Muslim? And if so little is required of Christianity, so little for someone to be an adherent to Christianity, be labeled a Christian, I should say, not an adherent, labeled. If equally little is required to be a Muslim, then if you're just believing God based on that, go right ahead. Help yourself, just like the Christians, like my mom, my aunts, my uncles, my brothers, go right ahead if that's all it takes. And enjoy yourself, enjoy your faith.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, it's to put that on other people. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just remembering myself and thinking on my own journey, but it's the believer that has something on the line. I don't believe it. I don't believe in the God. God costs me nothing. I don't have to say no special prayers. I don't have to have no magical things around me. I don't have to have any dietary restrictions. I don't have to give up any of my money. I don't have to make certain choices in the bedroom. I don't have to be like I don't have to pay any of that. But somehow the people that I'm gonna go ahead and assume they genuine in their faith and they really be about their life, they sacrifice so much, their entire lives for their faith, and then they want other people to prove.
Well, I think
it's so interesting.
I think most people sacrifice almost nothing. I think and again, I don't know anything about it. I know so much about Islam. Are most Muslims really sacrificing much?
No, I guess not. They said the minimum is belief in Allah, his angels, his prophets, divine scriptures sent to the prophets, day of judgment, and divine decree of God. But see, that's that last part, the divine decree. That's where, the divine decree is where things get a little hot and heavy. That's where that's where you got to start to obey them rules and them law. Look, I'm just saying, I don't know why, and I'm feeling a bit friendly. but seriously, like this is me trying to be, you know, nice about this. Like, we're not believers. This is like me trying to be a genuine believer as I'm probably ever gonna get in a YouTube space. Like, we're not believers. So just think about why you put so much of your identity into something and you can't come up with objective proof that it's real. That's a them problem. It's a believer
but
problem.
Look, I have a business degree in marketing, so I'll tell you, you do pay a cost. You pay a social cost for other people having a faith in God.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the Bible says, you know, physical exercise benefits the body very little. We now know it has tremendous benefits for the body. But how many Christians have read that and so they don't exercise? So these people also can't pay their hospital bills. So there might be grants given, not all of them, some of them can't. There might be grants given to hospitals to cover some of those costs. That money comes from you, Pocket Locker. It comes from me. It comes from our other listeners. So we have these companies, these businesses that are subsidized by our tax dollars to cover the failings, if you will, caused by certain religions. We do.
Oh yeah,
So
no, I definitely think there's a cost to society.
So I pay. I got my tax bill. I pay some money. Some of my taxes go to pay for local schools. Now I can agree. I'm glad those schools are there to educate those children. I don't have children, so I think until I do, I should pay a lower amount. But there's no way I think I should pay nothing. But the moment I have a child, we know eventually my child will probably, if we stay in this area, enter the school system. And now my child is putting a load on the system. So I have more of an obligation to my community to pay more to see that that's taken care of. And it doesn't work that way. They just tell everybody in my neighborhood, you're going to pay this much based on the house you own. The value of your home, you're going to pay based on that.
There's
so they're treating everyone the same.
There's no such thing. So look, this person said, by God decree, God knows everything that has happened and will happen. But then they're saying God created us and gave us free will. Again, we're gonna move on with the program. But
okay,
to keep
so
it very basic,
Islam,
these two things, yeah, and these two things don't go together, right? We can't have free will and yet also everything's already been predetermined. So then, because if everything's been predetermined, then we don't have the agency to change what's going to happen, which means we don't actually have free will. But also,
I might suggest, if God had no power to act in our universe, right? So let's say my fiance watched a movie last night, some Jason Bateman and Ryan Reynolds. So maybe 1,000 people in the state of California watched that movie yesterday. And some people will have watched it for the second time. What none of them could do is alter what happened in the movie that they saw. So if God is like that, just sitting there watching, he's the grand observer, we indeed could have free will, but God just knows what we're going to do. We are making our own choices, and God just has the videotape or the Blu-ray of it all.
Yeah, he just has the advanced foreknowledge. Yeah.
So I could excuse it on that.
Yeah, I don't buy that, but I get that that's the response. Yeah.
Well, here's the kicker. When you introduce prayer, which evidently is the ability to petition God to change the course of events, now you don't have, if that's true, you don't have free will anymore. Because if I was going to buy, these come in a set of 5. I already had one for her, and I got the other 4. If all the other ones,
I think you're doing their work for him, though.
Oh, look, I just listened to Alex, what is the guy's name? He's an atheist guy from Britain. I just saw or listened to part of an interview where the Capturing Christianity guy was interviewing him, like addressing atheist arguments. And I'm like, yeah, you're getting him to do your work for you. I don't mind being able, look, I used to write stories. I don't mind being able to tell a religious person, here's how you can justify that belief, right? Here's how you might be able to justify it. Because if I'm having a discussion and I can grant them that, and yet I still disagree, that should bother them. The fact that I can tell you, here's how to win with that argument, but you don't win all the arguments. You can
Yeah.
have a few, you can have a few victories, but you're
But
not
this
going to
is
take the most medals home in the mind Olympics of
this is
religion
it's
and
why I
mind
kind of it's why I kind of think it's a lot of times these are, or most of the times these are lost cause conversations, because the things that should bother them don't, which means there's a big disconnect there, because
I
like when I was a believer, those things bothered me. You know,
Mhm.
I recognized at some point the reality of just the basics of when you make a claim, when you claim something to be the case, it's on you to demonstrate it to be such, and to realize that I'm bought into a whole set of claims. Okay, well, now I got to know, for me, is this stuff true? So
well,
if
I
that's not how a person's concerned, if a person's not concerned about that, it's like, well, I gotta know what to tell you if you're not concerned about the fact that, you may be having the wool pulled over your eyes. Or I got another one. God created us and gave us free will. I hate to say that, but this is why evolution to me is the death nail of theology and in most of these theistic faiths. It should bother you that we have a viable explanation for the origins of humanity, and it's a completely natural explanation that does not require a god at all.
at all.
And if it's almost like, if we can't get past that, we really shouldn't be talking, because if I'm just the type of person, and it's almost like a confession on my end. I'm just the type of person who, if you reject the most well evidenced theory in the history of biology, I just don't know what else I can do for you. Right? It's because that's kind of how most of us are gonna do this dance. I'm gonna have an idea, you're gonna have an idea. We're gonna make sure both of our ideas hold up to good reason and sound logic. Then we're gonna start hitting it with, well, what's your evidence? What's my evidence? Right? And if you can ignore that much evidence, I'm not saying that I know you're wrong. I'm just saying you're beyond my capacity.
Mhm.
But as a believer, again, it's no skin off my back as an evolutionary biologist, but as a believer, you got to really think about the fact that this proposing this God idea has really not helped us explain anything. And everything we've figured out about the world around us does not require a God. Like I just gotta just, it's almost like, you don't have to debate us over it, but go to your room and think about that.
Well, I wanna congratulate you because I think you've in the future I'll have future arguments that I think you've helped me make better by asking the person of faith, and maybe we can ask our Muslim viewer, may not be the only one, but the Muslim viewer that's been active today. Um, is there anything that bothers you about Islam? When I will be in an argument with someone about something they posted on Facebook that's a Bible quote, and I'm telling them why this idea is a bad idea, or I'm telling them like this ignores these other concepts that are in the Bible, and so they contradict each other. Maybe the question I should be asking all along is, does it bother you that, and then dot dot dot. So for our viewer there, the Muslim person, does it bother you that there's suffering in this world, which is, in your view, under the control of a God that clearly can stop suffering? Does it bother you that's left to us where there's too few people that care? when God has the power to end suffering. Let's look at Israel right now. They're actively bombing innocent people. The government is not, you know, not the guy on the corner who's just trying to live his life and is hurting for those Palestinians up there. And he might be the most devout Jewish person to ever live. And he's praying every day that the violence cease, right? But Allah, to borrow from Chris, I forget his name, Christopher Hitchens, Allah folds his arms and lets it happen.
Yeah, and that's a key point. Like and you know, I don't want to keep going on with this person in chat, but for any, you know, genuine believers out there that are listening, just leave science out of the conversation. Just do yourself a favor and leave science out of the conversation. First off, you don't believe for scientific reasons. Please name the scientific reason where you begin to identify with this faith. No, it's a personal story. It's an experience. It's the religion you were raised in. Whatever your story is, it is not a. There's. Please point me to the peer-reviewed paper that you read that made you an adherent to your faith. So it's you're trying to solve a problem with you're trying to create belief with the tool with a different tool than the one you use to create your own. But the other thing is you can't win this argument. So let's say, because I don't actually believe all of these claims about how scientifically accurate the Quran is and all of this stuff. But let's just say it is for the sake of argument, because I've actually talked about this and I think it's a very interesting case. I usually use it to talk about the fact that the Christian Bible is so easy to debunk, and it's I do count it almost as evidence against it. But if you think about the epistemology, even if the Bible, or in this case the Quran, accurately describes embryology, evolution, geology, the history of the universe, that would still not be evidence that there's a God.
True.
And it still would not be a good reason to believe the faith. It would just happen to coincide with what we learn through scientific inquiry. Further, all it would do is form a competing hypothesis. So let's say, again, the Holy Book gets all the facts right. Then we come up with these scientific theories: evolution, gravity, strong and weak nuclear forces, all this type of stuff, with the body of naturalistic science that as we've come to know and love it. Well, what we would get is a situation in where we test the natural explanations and we generate evidence that things are the case under the conditions of the natural explanations that we can actually test. And so even if that were the case, we would literally just come to the conclusion of, I don't know how and why your holy book seems to get the facts right, but we still can't test it. We still have no way of, it being proof that there's a God. And matter of fact, when we test the model that this is just the way things work and you don't need a God to explain the way things work, yeah, guess what? The evidence suggests that this is just how things work and you don't need evidence. Mm-hmm. So it's just this argument isn't going where you think it's going, right? At best, under the most favorable conditions, it's just and honestly, to me, it just suggests like that. I think they use the Christian standard, which again is just so easily debunked, as a bad point of comparison. Because for me, I would just be willing to say that, again, even if it were the case, which I don't think it is, I just don't find it unreasonable that let's say the Quran and the Muslims' faith's core coming at a later time they were very studied people. And so I think they could have just very much had knowledge that was advanced compared to prior religious traditions, and that they incorporated, what was known to them, if they really knew, because there's nothing to tell us that we didn't know things. And we know that they were scientific people. We know they did natural investigations. We know that they built libraries of what was known at the time. And so again, it would just be saying that this particular religious cult emerged from a more scientifically literate people. Okay, cool. But again, my thing is, check this out too. Does it bother you that it's all about this day of judgment? Because you just came through and basically said that the purpose of life is for us to give evidence for or against where, how we're going to be judged in the end by God. Like, your God sounds like a monster.
The God
Just
of the Bible is
God
monstrous.
just, or the God of the Quran, in this case, the God sounds like a monster. And again, if that's the type of being you want to worship, like, I literally can't stop you. But doesn't it bother you that, like, your God is just using life as some sort of cruel test? And that doesn't sound like a very loving God who says, I'm gonna let you live and suffer and watch all this terrible stuff happening to humanity, and then I'll determine in the end whether or not you're deserving of my love. Like, if that's your sales pitch, good luck with that.
Hey, good luck finding a date for the dance, the town dance. I think when properly investigated, a lot of these religions people will see like, oh, this is an empty cup. The community aspect can be so lovely, though, to have a group of people who you can enjoy their company with and things like that. If you absolutely need that, like we said I forget that guy who came on as a guest and we interviewed him, who was playing, I think it was drums, in the church band, but was no longer. He felt he was on his way out of belief, and we told him, hey, if you're having a wonderful time, with your family and your friends there, keep going. They don't have to know that you don't believe. And I think the life experience is about experiencing joy and harmony and happiness and love, in a peaceful way, right? This can be done with little to no suffering. So do it that way. Whatever your religion is, or if you don't have one at all, do it that way. If we all saw it that way, and we understood that can be achieved without taking things that don't belong to you. As one police officer pointed out when I asked him, what one thing, if you could change it about the world, would make your job easier? And he said, if people just stop taking things that don't belong to them. You don't take someone's freedom. You don't take their wife. You don't take their life. You don't take their property. That one thing would dramatically change the world. There may not be a better answer than the one he gave.
So I don't know, this person, they're still going, but I just, there's so many of the things that are coming up that I think are just issues with faith that are so apparent to me now that I used to not see them. But this is just so, all right, so if suffering in the world is an issue to you, is no accountability not more of an issue? There's absolutely no accountability under the God model. Let me just be clear. From my perspective, you've been sold a bill of goods. So let's say somebody does, let's just say horrible things. We don't need to be specific. Let's just call it horrible things. Whatever horrible things are to you, things that are definitely worth accountability, right? Under the God model, there's absolutely no accountability. Under the God model, let's just say they live out and die their natural death, right? There's no accountability, because you're claiming that there will be judged by God on the day of judgment, but again, there's no reason to believe that God exists or that there's going to be a day of judgment or what that day of judgment would entail, right? Under most models of just secularism and non-belief, and in my case, like secularism, we advocate for real accountability, which by definition has to be something that affects someone's life while they're alive. So we want justice. Like we want, if you do horrible things, there's some sort of, and whatever that justice might be. I'm not saying it should always be punitive. A lot of us think it should be restorative, or, we could have different conversations about what it is, but right. But we want accountability in this life, in real time, in the real world. It's messy, but it's actually real. It's something we can actually experience and work towards. And that's what we want to do. And then we try to protect other people to make the horrible thing happen less. We do something. We try to solve these problems. And it's just amazing to me that believers, again, have no concern for the fact that they've been sold this bill of goods to think that there's ultimately going to be some kind of justice to all this. You just have to wait till after you die to experience the justice. My guy, that's not accountability.
Well, I want to answer that question.
Yeah.
For me, can you put it back up there? Do you have a way of doing that?
Yeah.
Please. Okay, so Rukia Services asks, if suffering in the world is an issue for you, is no accountability not more of an issue? Okay, I'm not a theist. One of the criticisms I have of the Judeo-Christian or Abrahamic, I guess that's more inclusive, the Abrahamic God, is if it exists, it doesn't really do much. Things like tsunamis that wipe out hundreds of thousands of people at one time. It would be the simplest of motions for a God who created the universe in 4 days, in one day, in Earth several days. It would be almost no work to save the lives of those people. There will be children who will grow up without parents in such an instance. There will be thousands of animals, maybe millions of animals dead too, that will suffer. They'll drown, right? Because of that tsunami, or something will crush them, or some other starving predator that isn't even in the region will come along and eat them. But whatever, untold suffering will occur as a result of the God not being accountable in saving the lives it created. I have a problem. My fiance and I weeded the yard yesterday, part of the yard. It's a big yard. So we worked in there clearing out some of the weeds that I allowed to grow there. It would have been a much prettier place had the weeds not grown there. Had I cut them sooner, right? Had I spent 2 hours going through there to get rid of them sooner. So I had a choice to act or not act. I had a choice to be accountable or not be accountable. The thing is, in the case of my yard, only a few weeds lost their life. No doubt they drop seeds. The world will go on without them and be basically the same. To everybody who's ever looked at those weeds, it'll be the same. But when someone loses their father, their mother, their children, and they're still standing around wondering why, God, why? That God has not been accountable to those people who loved him or her or it.
Yeah. And that's
a problem for me. When we
Yeah.
have in the United States and no doubt other places, you have priests raping the children that go to their churches and maybe their mosques. Like I said, I know that much about Islam. But if it's happening in one place, it's happening in schools. It's probably happening in some mosques, some homes. The chances are that God did that God, and Tracy Harris from the Atheist Experience, formerly the Atheist Experience, has the best take on this. Your God sits there and watches it and says, allows it to happen and says, later, I'm going to get you. But what? I think she leaves out the part, unless you repent, I'm going to get you.
Yeah. And here's a part that I think gets left out on sort of all sides of this, because we talk a lot about the punishment for the unrighteous, the the salvation or whatever of the righteous. But what we don't often talk about is the suffering of the righteous. Meaning, in the time between when it's all good and when they're off to heaven, there's there's a lot of ugliness in between. So my grandparents are currently dealing with health challenges, being elderly. Grandma's just, they're going through a lot, like, and it's not pretty, gang. I'll spare you some of the details, because they'll put you off your lunch. And all of us see this, but we don't just see it in heathens and atheists and other people living in sin. We see it in the most devout people we know. We see it in the people that walk the walk and talk the talk and led the congregations. We see it in the holiest of the holy. So, again, what type of God punishes and doesn't try to alleviate the suffering of his children, those he supposedly loves, and those who have absolutely loved him?
Mm-hmm.
Because I could tell you, as people who love other people, we do everything we can to alleviate and stop their suffering. And where the only limit to what we'll do to stop other people's suffering is the limit of our means. We do as much as we can.
Or comfort.
Yeah, it's if I could put mom in a nicer home, I would. If I could send her to the specialist at the best hospital, I would, that type of thing. But you have a God who has the power to heal and make everything better. And again, if you're just gonna have, if it's time to die and go to heaven or whatever, and it's just supposed to be time to be rewarded for well done, thy good and faithful servant, then why not just say, okay, you've reached your age limit, and poof you, and God snatch you on up. It's kind of like Pine Creek's poof or drown. It's a lot of righteous people that God apparently chooses to drown. And again, I just think that should bother you as a believer.
Well, I think, and maybe Rukia Services, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, could comment on that, because it's in their, Noah's flood has got to be part of what they believe. It becomes part of the package deal of being based on the Hebrew religion. So if that's true, does it bother you that that's the path God took? Why wipe out almost all of humanity, almost all living things, almost every living thing was wiped out?
Yep.
Because God was upset. What individual deserves that kind of power? What individual deserves that kind of power? Even Adolf Hitler didn't want to wipe out everybody, right? Mao didn't want to wipe out everybody. Stalin didn't want to wipe out everybody. Jim Jones didn't want to wipe out everybody.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's a monstrous belief, and that's let's try to get through the rest of this video. We only got a few minutes left, but it's interesting too here, because again, like, they're trying to build this up with the flowery language and the visions, but we see the tension here, that really what they're talking about is this God that, again, is going to come and sit in righteousness. So he's trying to get us to feel great with this warm and fuzzy story about how, you know, a vision of God changed his heart or whatever about abortions. But again, no abortion doctor has any what of a body count compared to, again, God wiping out every man,
That's
woman,
right.
and child during the flood, and then at routine intervals telling his people to go kill and murder men, women, and children.
Exactly.
So I mean,
Yeah, ethnic
crazy.
cleansing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it like this too. Most of the religious people that I know of right now are currently supporting one side or the other in an effort of ethnic cleansing, and can't seem to bring themselves to the position most of us are at, which is just condemning all of the violence against anyone, especially for you know, who they happen to be and where they were born and what they believe. It's funny how great this God is, and God can't even get God's people to stop killing each other.
No.
I'm very unimpressed.
Flat down on the ground and said, I am a man of unclean lips in a land of unclean lips. Get away from me. And I hit the ground as hard as I could, yet I didn't get hurt. It's all
Hey,
rock.
Lena.
And then in my prayer, she just gently lifted me up through my arm, and she put my right arm into his side, where I touched the heart of Christ, the font of mercy, in my prayer. And everything had changed. I collapsed to my knees. Now I'm seeing myself as a leper, and my skin is just rotten, and it's beginning to be healed. And scales come off my eyes, and I look up, and I'm loved. Beloved. Totally loved.
Christians, y'all play too much Dungeons and Dragons. This is y'all are at the Renaissance Fair all the time. It's like I reached in and I touched the heart of the Savior, and then I fell to my knees and the scales came off of my eyes and I was transformed to Megalosaurus, and then I went stomping about. I mean, it's too much. We got to stop taking people like this. Like, I can't. Like, you just.
Well, it's clear that he's having some sort of vision here. That's what he's sharing, right? And he's trying to describe it as beautifully as he can. I'll equate it to my own life. When I talk about my near-death experience where I was in the Caribbean and diabetes was basically killing me, and had I not gone to the hospital on a particular morning, I'd probably be dead, right? As my brain is shutting down and I'm laying in bed on my beachfront apartment, and I'm there, one of the things my brain does is it starts shutting down differentiations between me, maybe if these earbuds were there, this earbuds, this tangerine peel, and all those things feel like they're part of me, and the feeling is wonderful. It's astonishing. I could write you a poem, but I still could never get to telling you how amazing that experience felt. This is what he's doing for us here, right? He's giving us flowery language. He's giving us biblical imagery equated in his own life to communicate to the audience how remarkable this experience was and how it changed him.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's
he
very.
didn't have us to explain it to him.
You've already got to buy in, because for the rest of us, we're gonna just keep saying. He keeps saying in his prayer, he's telling you he's imagining something in his prayer closet, and then he basically came out and said as much. And so it's a bit disappointing that the Christianese is so strong that they can say these things in plain English, and the religious right still is so impressed that that this is inspiring. If you look at the comments and all this stuff, this is inspiring believers. This is literally to them, you know, confirmation of the miraculous workings of God. Whereas to us, this is just somebody who conveniently had a vision that can help him sell books. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you,
Dollar sign.
Jesus.
Us Christians can't answer.
I fucked that up. Hang
Us
on.
Christians can't answer questions.
Fuck
And we
that
say,
up. What's going on here?
If us Christians can't answer questions,
Well, maybe it's a commercial. Let's see what the guy says. Let's see what the guy says.
No, it's not a commercial. It's a video we've done before. Let me for some reason they clicked on another video. Here
So
we go.
2 days later, my mom gets on the phone and goes, "Hey," through my arm.
Back to the beginning. Okay, there we
And
go.
she put my right arm into his side where I touched
We skipped
The
over.
heart
Yeah,
of
you got to go
Christ,
back
the
a little
font of
bit. 'Cause He's
mercy.
talking about meeting Jesus.
in my prayer
I think he was right about maybe I know he's about 9 minutes.
lips in a land of unclean lips.
Mhm.
So once again, in my prayer, when I looked up and I saw or imagined what I saw, I fell flat down on the ground and said, I am a man of unclean lips in a land of unclean lips. Get away from me. And I hit the ground as hard as I could, yet I didn't get hurt. It's all rock. And then in my prayer, she just gently lifted me up through my arm, and she put my right arm into his side where I touched the heart of Christ, the font of mercy, in my prayer. And everything had changed. I collapsed to my knees. Now I'm seeing myself as a leper, and my skin is just rotten, and it's beginning to be healed.
Oh my goodness.
And scales come off my eyes.
Goodness.
And I look up, and I'm loved.
Just no. Christians are not about that life. Let me just keep it all the way real with y'all real quick. Look, I have been in the psych ward for real. And so have a lot of my friends. These cats wouldn't make it 10 minutes. Okay? They would not make it 10 minutes in an isolation room. In a room where they just say, you know what, you just need to sit here in this room for a little while, and we're just gonna watch you. Just sit here in this room. Would not make it 10 minutes without losing their mind. They are not ready to be involuntarily committed. Have to be forced to take medication, isolated, cut off from your friends and family, having to go to group therapy every day, having group time, having your activities scheduled, having your y'all couldn't do a week. Couldn't do a week. To a man, every single one of them be like, oh yeah, no, doc, I'm good. No, I'm not seeing anything. No. Oh, yeah, the mind has healthy dreams, doc. I was just journaling. Yeah, I was just describing my dreams. No, I'm good to go. See, this is what we mean by the acceptable form of crazy. Because if you were not talking about your religion and you sat there and talked about, I envisioned myself and I was diseased and I was healed and my skin was rotting and I was melting like a candle, but then Jesus came and he touched me and it came back together, and then I was in glory and then he lifted me up into the air and I was free like the Titanic scene. Like, woo, 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 call him. Because again, like if I'm telling y'all, I have friends who are diagnosed with schizophrenia. Gang, they get hospitalized because they think someone's following them when you don't see anyone following them. Because they're concerned about the government using our devices for surveillance, which I don't know if you knew this, but it's been verified that the government is using our devices for surveillance.
Most of us aren't that interesting.
And they get but they get hospitalized for this. They get put in, the padded room treatment for real. And I'm just saying, like, it's crazy that what people with actual mental health diagnoses go through, what triggers the institutional response in our lives is a hair trigger compared to what these people claim. And I'm gonna give it to you another thing to think about that should be striking to people. What about the consequences? Because for most of the people I know that are dealing with their mental health stuff, like I said, a hair trigger. They say something weird. They don't eat for a couple days. They're up a little too late at night for 3 or 4 days in a row. Somebody's calling people on them, and they're going to the hospital. Okay, and involuntary committal is very likely. Okay, but 90+% of the times, they're not a threat to anybody. They're just a little unregulated today. These people are out here having wilding ass out delusions of grandeur and crazy visions and all of this type of stuff. And then because of this, they are motivated to do things that harm and marginalize other people. And it's still just fine. It's still just they're still just good to go. Because again, this is the acceptable form of crazy. But it's just crazy that we really we don't bat an eyelash at these visions they be having, man. All
Well,
right, go ahead.
I think this man is being, and maybe he's having a bit of understanding about what he's saying, that he realizes this is just his experience. It's not proof. It's not the proof you and I would need, Pocket Locker. It's not the proof that most of our audience needs to accept his point of view. Maybe it's not strong enough to be a point of view. It's just an experience that was transformative for him.
Right.
That said, hey, maybe I'm not real happy doing what I'm doing. Maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing professionally. Because if he must be an MD. He clearly has the education to do other things. And maybe he felt he should do something that is more gratifying.
Yeah. And again, it almost seems like I don't know, but it seems like he was definitely brought up in this stuff, and his mother had, she had visions and all this type of weird stuff. So like I said, this was a weird, like, to speak to this comment of not even sure, Smash the Patriarch said, I'm not even sure if he was really an abortion doctor. Yeah, it's weird. It's almost got like a Jay Wallace feel to it, right? Where he's had this backstory just to write this book or something. But yeah, it's very weird. But also, I'm also willing to believe that there's a lot of trauma for certain people in that line of work, especially with certain ideas and programming in your background. Like if you're really indoctrinated to believe that this is an evil thing to begin with from the time you're young, and then you are dealing with just the realities of what that type of medical care looks like on the front lines, and yeah, it's not an easy job to do, right? And when you think about what is required in a lot of those cases, it almost reminds me of being a soldier or a police officer or a firefighter, where there are things in your line of duty that reasonably cause trauma responses in a lot of people. So I think that's definitely a possibility here. All right, let's see if
we could contrast this guy with one of my doctors, who's like this world-class physician that deals with the heart and defibrillators and pacemakers and stuff like that, right? She knows for a fact she's literally saving people's lives with what she does.
Right.
And when we come to her office and we sit down and we tell her, I've seen her face. She's just, it's still for her, it's routine. That's how great the science is now, right?
Yeah.
She didn't hear me say, well, amen, doctor, after I had nearly died. And I'm sitting in her office, I think it was like a week later or something like that. And she's like, what the heck happened? Tell me everything. She wants to know about my experience, not so she can go to a doctor's conference and say, isn't God good? But hey, folks, here's how good the technology is, but here's where we need to grow. Because I had a patient, he had this difficulty, blah, 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 and he could have had a better experience when his defibrillator was preventing him from having ventricular tachycardia and killing. So
Right.
here's how that could have been better. It could have been smoother, blah, blah, blah. It could have been almost invisible, maybe, if we just did that. And he would know, but he wouldn't be panicking. I was panicking like that much.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
I knew I was going to be okay. But yeah, versus this guy who his tasks were solemn tasks. They were very final, right? Final, not in the way where it's life extension, like it is for my doctor, but very much the opposite, where this is for this baby or what have you, or child, fetus, whatever.
Right.
This is the end.
Yeah.
For his patients where he was tying tubes, we can't undo this.
Yeah.
I can't undo this.
And I see that as partially a failure of our ability to define medicine properly, because I personally, like, end of life care is important to me, and I actually want to die via physician assisted suicide. Like, I just think this expectation that people stick around and suffer and in most cases predictably go broke and lose their dignity in their final, years of or months of life, I think is cruel and unusual punishment. People haven't done anything wrong. They're being punished for they didn't even commit a crime. And so I think we should recognize that part of medicine is sometimes finding a compassionate way to end life at any stage, right? The same way we would. I think our pets die with more dignity a lot of times.
Well, what if you were 95 years old and having an absolute wonderful time, and your body's still in? I'm giving this example from my friend's dad. Okay, you're 95 years old. You're having a wonderful time. You're surrounded by really terrific people, and you're not in a nursing home. You're living in your home. You're still married to your first wife. You're having a great time.
Yeah, what's the issue?
You still want to die that way? If you're
yes, because I'm not saying that it's something you do on a whim. I'm saying it's something I'm saying it's something you do when you're terminally ill and you've decided that and your quality of life is going to be lowered to the point that it's and again it's up to me, it's up to that person, right? It's their decision.
I think it's definitely be up to the individual.
Yeah. So it's not an age limit or a requirement, but I'm just saying right now what we have where a lot of people can't access that and they would like to die, like if we're going to be serious about it, that's what they would like to do, and that's what would be the most compassionate way to go. But my point is, I just think that we need to expand our our palette of options, because I do think that's I think it's an admirable part of the medical profession, and it's a shame that people don't have a healthier attitude about it. Yeah.
Totally loved. I saw my life pass before me, sins of omission and commission. I was deeply sorry. There was fear, but not. There was, Father, forgive me, for I'm a sinner. right through me, right through me. And then she picked me back up again. The mother, in my prayer said, do you want to help my son renew the face of the earth in medicine? And I said, oh my God, is that the answer to my schizophrenia? Is that the answer to my split?
He did interrupt himself from saying
Fusion
schizophrenic or schizophrenia.
with the Father.
Yes.
Brings joy to the sinner's heart. The fusion. The fusion that the mother is expert at. The fusion that Aquinas and the rest of the cloud of witnesses have witnessed. It's the beginning of the reality of the conversion, of the consecration to Our Lady that my mother did for me back 7 days after my birth. But I'm now learning that consecration is really Holocaust, which nobody likes to talk about. But it's okay. I'll walk with you through it. Do you want to help renew the face of the earth in medicine?
Consecration is really
How?
Holocaust?
How? Be excellent. See the underserved next to the served. Follow the teachings of my son's church in medicine and faith and reason. And oh, by the way, when you finish here, go show yourself to my priest down at the bottom of the hill and go to confession. First time in 15 years, whatever. I don't know, 10 years.
And again, this just
So Matt.
this just shows you the nonsense of their entire worldview. Playing at delusion because they are certain that they will not have to face the consequences that come with real delusion. Playing at confession. Again, you hear the woo, 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 knock on the door. We heard you confess that you were guilty of unaliving massive amounts of babies, and you were snatching off their limbs as you ripped life from their precious little baby hearts. And all of a sudden, he's gonna be back to wait. It was legal, and I was just a doctor, and this is just a medical care, and it was a woman's right to choose in my state, right? In other words, Christians only act like what they do is really a crime when they're confessing to God, and there are no criminal consequences. Because again, for the unrepentant doctor in this case or whatever, wouldn't it be better to face accountability in this life rather than eternal accountability, rather than to suffer and be tortured forever?
Yeah, but that guy's repentant.
Exactly.
So he doesn't. There's no cost, and I would argue for him, there's no social cost either for all those who would have judged him for being an abortion doctor. He had an epiphany from God. He is no longer an abortion doctor. He is literally the definition of repentance is to turn and go the other way. He has demonstrated in his life that he's done that. And not only that, but there's a book, folks, at an affordable price that you can buy that'll help you understand his journey, so that if you have to have a transformative journey in your life, he's given you yet another pattern. Because you're probably not going to read the Bible all the way through. So you might as well read his book instead. Problem solved. Marketing 101. Give the people an alternative they can enjoy.
Yeah. It just makes me want to call him out. Like, you don't really think you're guilty of committing a crime. You're not really, you're not serious about this. But it's almost too perfect of a story, for the Christian narrative. It's also a bit weird that Jesus works through appearances of Mary. It's very Catholic. It's a very Catholic story. Is how you're dealing with a Catholic person having visions of Mary, because a lot of Christians will outright dismiss you for even talking about you know, a vision of Mary, a supernatural vision of Mary bringing you to Christ. Like you know, it's, but I get it. I get it, because it is a bit weird to have visions of your savior's parent
Mom,
rather than your
his
savior.
mom.
Yeah.
I told Jesus to come here, but he kept putting it off, so I came here.
Yeah.
So I brought him here in the car. Jesus is sitting in the back seat of the station wagon with his arms folded, all pissed off. I didn't want to go, Mom. You know what? Go. You're going. You know.
You're going. Yeah. All right.
Now go up to that mountain and talk to that man. You know.
Yeah, it's too much. I honestly, I think that video did highlight just how we live in different realities. You know, to them, they just throwing that stuff out there like it's everyday occurrence. And again, for me, you know, you really think you're seeing visions and you know, having tactile encounters with people that aren't in the room, and reaching in their chest and their scales falling off your eyes and your body's disintegrating and then reintegrating. Woo, 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 woo. You know what I'm saying? Oh, what'd you say? Oh, you've been snatching up baby parts and just murdering babies by the dozens. Woo, 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 woo. You know, but you know, no. I was a spiritual imagining, and you know, it's just it's they're not really about that life. But that's the gap I feel, and that's real for me. Like I really mean that. I have myself and had friends institutionalized for far less, and it does hit you like, oh no, we can't talk like that. No, you cannot talk like that. You will get snatched up quickly. Unless it's religious, then you're good to go. But yeah, that's it for me, man. What are your closing thoughts here?
I guess the line is drawn at saying you're God or you're Jesus. As long as you stop just short of those, you're probably fine. When it comes to the religious.
Maybe we should talk about that next week, because I think that's you know, there's a lot of this current evangelical narrative that's blurring that line. You know, they call it a small g God theology. The idea that, you know, Christians are kind of saying like, I am God. I'm of God's essence.
You've had some bigger, in my opinion, charlatans put forth that idea. You are a little G God of their congregations, and the money kept rolling in. I'm telling you.
Yes.
Well, for our viewers, you can be little G atheists or little A atheists if you want, or little G non-gods if you want, and no one's gonna complain. You know, sure, we could tackle that. I think it's let me know for sure when, and maybe I can bring a few scriptures that say, "Hell no to the no." Well, you know. Fail to the no, you are not a little G God. You are no God at all.
Definitely.
You're just some person who's trying to figure it all out like the rest of us. You know? And there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to have a solution for everything. We don't.
All right, gang.
Collectively, we should.
Do us a favor, smash that like button, hit us with a subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, leave us a comment if you're watching later on. I'm headed off to Gather. If you want to hang out with us when we're not live, we'll be in Gather. The link, it says Link Up with the Gang in the description. So I've got to remember that it's the Link Up with the Gang thing in the description, and that'll take you to Gather. It should be working now. So, all right, gang, thank you so much. As always, be good to yourselves
and each other.
We'll see you next time.